Hi everyone, Letty here. Today I'm going to share with you a craft with me video where we smash a 6x6 paper pad and I show you my entire cards process from start to finish. So the paper pad I'm using is the She Inspires Us from Michaels. I had purchased this a while back when they had it. I think it was part of the National Women's Day celebration sale, and each of these items was $4.99. You see here I have already taken out the paper from that paper pad. I also bought the coordinating stickers, and what's neat about this is that they do have 2 of each design. You can see here there are 6 different designs, 2 of each. So you've got 12 different sheets of paper, or of stickers, I mean. And then I also bought these like cardstock stickers. They're very sturdy, and this is also one that comes with 2 of each. And so again, they were like $4.99 each, but I ended up having them on sale. I don't remember if I got them 40 or 60% off, so it wasn't that much. So I've already taken out all of the papers from the paper pad and grouped them together. I do get 2 of each type, and it looks like I have 3 different designs of cut aparts. This first one are these 6-inch strips. And these are actually going to be great to put with the mini Slimlines because you can cut them down. And then I also have 2 sheets or 2 different designs of just normal cut aparts that I'll be cutting apart just like normal. And then these are the design papers that come with the collection. And these are single-sided. And again, you see that it is 2 of each of the designs, which is going to be perfect because I'm going to try to use up the embellishments, those large stickers, as my focal points on these cards, and there are 2 of each one, so it's perfect that there's 2 of each design of paper. So, and we will be making both mini Slimline and A2 size cards, as well as I'm going to show you how to make the mini Slimline card base as well as an A2 size card base. So those were the papers that came with this collection. Again, I've got these cardstock stickers I'll use as focal points, and then I'll embellish with those final stickers as well. I did also punch out some mini metallic gold hearts. I just pulled out a piece of metallic gold paper from my scrap stash, and I used 3 punches to get 3 different sizes of hearts. And I'll show you the punches here. So this first one, the larger one, was one from the Paper Studio brand from Hobby Lobby. And then the second one that I used was one by Fiskars. And this is one of those handheld punches. And I've had it for a while. I don't know where I got it. And then this mini one I've also had for a long time. I have no clue where I got it. I don't know the brand either. But you see there I used the 3. And I've already made a ton of card bases off camera. I will show you how to make one of each. This is the paper, the cardstock paper that I'm using for my card bases. I got this from Hobby Lobby. That's the type. It's called Confetti. And I found that those pinks and that teal and probably even the light blue, if I had any, would work great with this collection. So just in case you're curious, again, I have 2 left over because I'm going to show you how to make some card mats. Now, I did go ahead and trim off all of the branding strips. You can see there where there was like some perforation. I went ahead and took them off. I've already cut them down to just a regular 6x6. And I will be just putting this in the recycle bin. I don't know that I'm going to end up saving that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut up the cut aparts. Now, I mentioned that there were 3 designs, 2 of regular sheets and then 1 of the 6-inch ones. Now, I'm going to hold off on cutting down those 6-inch strips because I'm going to try to see what I have left. I have already cut down all of the cut aparts here. And again, you see there where I did not cut down the strips because I'm going to go ahead and wait on those until I get closer to actually finishing the cards. Let's go ahead and make a mini Slimline card base. So And I also have those A2 size card bases that I'm going to show you as well. But let's start with the mini Slimline. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to get a sheet of 8.5 by 11 cardstock paper, and any color will work. It'll just end up being your card base. And then you will need a paper trimmer, and I'm using this Fiskars one. I've been using it for a while. On the 11-inch side, you're going to cut down at 6.5. Now, if you've seen previous videos from me, you'll notice that I did change up my kind of direction a bit on this, and you'll see here that you do have 1 scrap so far. Then we're going to go ahead and turn on the 8.5-inch side, and we're going to cut it down to 6.25. So you can also use the methods that I did in the previous videos. This is just an alternative way. This is scrap number 2. So to each his own, you can decide which way you prefer better, but this is the way that I've been doing it lately. So I have a 6.5 by 6.25 paper. And you can also cut down, if you didn't have an 8.5 by 11, as long as you can get a 6.5 by 6.25, you'll have a perfect A2 size card base. Now, you can also use a 6 by 6 paper and just fold it in half, and you'll also have a slightly smaller mini slimline card base as well. So the first thing you're going to want to do is identify that 6.5-inch side. And this is something that I usually always keep my ruler handy for. And then you're basically just going to fold it in half. And again, it's important that you do it on the 6.5-inch side. So you definitely want to either take out a ruler or just be very cognizant whenever you're trimming down your paper. Then you just enforce with a bone folder, and that is your mini slimline card base. Super easy. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make some A2 size card bases. So you're going to take out an 8.5 by 11-inch cardstock. Now, you've got two options here. You can cut down at the 5.5-inch mark on the 11-inch side and make 2 card bases this way. Or you can also flip your paper on the 8.5-inch side and cut at 4.25, and you'll make 2 card base this way. And all you do is once you cut them down into the 2 pieces, you just fold them in half, and again, varnish with the bone folder or enforce with the bone folder. I'm actually going to be cutting on the 11-inch side at 5.5, and I get 2 card bases just like that. But you can pick and choose which way or which method you want to use. Either way will get you 2 card bases from one 8.5 by 11-inch paper. Then you just fold it in half, just like we did the other ones. And you're going to go ahead and enforce or varnish with the bone folder as well. Super quick and easy. That's our A2 size card base. Now, what you'll notice is that with one 8.5 by 11 paper, you get either one mini slimline or you get 2 A2 size card base. It actually just depends on what you're using. The irony is when you cut down a 6 by 6 paper, you get 2 mini slimline from one paper, or you get 1 A2 size card from one paper. So it just kind of works. You just have to kind of figure out what you want. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to let my embellishments, based on their size, I'm going to let them be my focal points, and I'm going to let them determine my orientation of the paper. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort out all of my papers. And this is one of my mass assembly kind of styles that I'm doing here. And again, now I'm just going to look at my embellishments and kind of see which way they would best be the focal point on a card. I want to make sure that they are small enough to fit on a mini slimline if that's what I want to use them for. A mini slimline mat is 3 inches by 6 inches. So you can see here, you can definitely use a ruler and try to measure out just to make sure it is going to fit. And if it's something that won't fit on a mini slimline, then you know you probably are going to have to use it on an A2 size card base. Now, you also want to determine the orientation. So by this, I mean either vertical or horizontal. So like up and down or like sideways. It just depends on which way you want your card facing. And a lot of times that focal point, that embellishment is going to determine it. So you saw there the first time I had them kind of laying flat, whereas this one I'm going to have kind of going up and down because of the nature of that little polish. It's kind of up and down. It makes a little bit more sense, at least in my head, to have it as a vertical card. So I'm just going through and I'm picking and choosing the coordinating papers that I want to use. And you can see here that if I find one where I want to use the mini slimline, I only need 1 sheet of paper because again, you get 2 mini slimlines from one 6 by 6 paper. So you see here where I'm trying to decide, left and right, top and bottom, which way I'm going to end up cutting and making the 2 slimline cards, mini slimlines from each 6 by 6 paper. Now, if you do have larger embellishments, you absolutely can just save your paper to make an A2 size card, and the card mat for that is 5.25 by 4 inches. Now, you will need 1 sheet for each of your A2 size card bases. You see here, this specific pattern, I really like it, but all of the embellishments were kind of too large that came from that sticker set. So what I ultimately decide, because I do not want to cover up any of that really awesome image, is I'm going to end up just using some of the cut aparts. So you can see here, I feel like the cut aparts would just work a little better for that. So I put those aside as some A2 size cards. And then this one as well. I feel like this one's a little bit bigger of an embellishment, and I'm going to make 2 A2 size cards with that. You see here with those rainbows, I can fit 2 on one page if I make mini slimlines. And I'm just kind of working through this process here of matching everything up. And it's okay to move things around and see what you like best. This is the best part of this process, is that you get to choose. You get to choose how these cards are going to end up. So you can kind of play around with it, move things, determine which combinations you like better. You may find that you set something aside, and then as the process goes along, you change your mind, and that's okay. That is totally okay in this process. The benefit, though, of kind of mapping everything out right now ahead of time is that when you do go down to actually cut down your cards, it's going to make it so much easier to get through this assembly line of cards, because you'll already have the kind of thought process laid out for you. You don't have to think as you go. You can actually do a little thinking up front and then have it all taken care of. So next, we're going to go ahead and cut down the papers that coordinate for each of these card mats. You see here, I already have them separated out by my mini slimlines, my A2s, and then the miscellaneous that I'm still kind of waiting on, trying to decide. I had one sheet left over, so I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do, and I end up doing 2 mini slimline. You can see here I'm using the Paper Studio guillotine trimmer. I really like this one. I think it's really, really great. So first I'm going to go ahead and cut down my mini slimline papers. Now you see here, you're basically going to just cut at 3 inches. So you determine the orientation, and then you cut the paper at 3 inches to go ahead and give you both of your card mats. You can see here exactly what I just did right there. So I'm just going to repeat this process for all of the rest of them. So again, I determine which way I want my cards, and then I flip the paper and cut it at 3 inches, so that way it yields me 2 of those mini slimline card mats. And some of this paper is non-directional, and so it really doesn't matter if you turn it left or turn it right. So if you make a mistake, no big deal. You just go ahead and either change the plan, or you just roll with it. And so you see here, now I'm going to be doing a vertical card, so I want to cut from the top instead of from the side. If you're going to be doing a horizontal card, then you cut from the side. So again, I have my vertical card, I cut it from the top, and then again, a horizontal card, and I'm cutting it from the side at 3 inches. So it's literally this simple. Now let's go ahead and work on the A2 size card mats. Now this is a little bit more challenging because you've got 2 cuts, not just one. You are going to have to cut it twice. What I'm going to do is, because I know my card mat for A2 size card is 5 1/4 by 4 inches, and I want to have these long strips that are 6 by 2 to use on my mini slimline cards, I'm going to cut at 4 inches. And you'll see here that I do this over and over, and then I'm going to cut it down at 5 1/4. Now, you've probably seen, again, previous videos where I do all different types of cutting down of the paper. This is just the method that I'm using for this specific one, because I'm making combinations of mini slimline and A2 size cards, and I want to maximize my paper. So again, you have 2 scraps left over, and you saw there where you're able to use the scraps on the cards themselves. So I'm just going to cut it down again at 4 inches, and then you'll have 1 scrap left over, which we'll use for mini slimlines, and then flip your paper and then cut it down at 5 1/4. Now, if you're not really sure of the orientation, like this one girl's can embellishment is really large, I think I'm actually going to be doing a horizontal card just like this instead of a vertical one. Now, I didn't fuss over which way I was going to cut that paper, because to me, that confetti paper was kind of multi-directional. It could go either way. So I just trimmed it down, and then I just tilted the paper to the side that I needed it. So, and one of the tips that I use is that you can use your scraps to try to determine which orientation you want. So just pull back 2 of those scraps. You already know where you're going to cut off. There's your A2 size card base. You can flip it and determine whether you want a horizontal or a vertical card, just like that. So this will save you some time, especially if you cut something and then you realize that is not how you want that paper to be cut. It saves you from making those types of mistakes. Just use your scraps. You already have them. You've already cut multiple of them. You know which way and which direction you're going to be cutting it, so you might as well just use them. So I ended up going with some vertical cards on that one. And then Here as well, I'm just making some vertical cards, and I am just flying through this process. You can see here it's very straightforward, very easy. Now here again, I'm going to pull out my scraps because I want to determine which is going to be the best method to cut this paper down, and I decide that again I wanted a vertical card. But you can choose any which way that you want. So it's just about using what you have here. So now you see here that we've got these mini scraps and these larger scraps. These are going to be for layering on cards. And these larger ones I'm hoping to add to my mini slimlines as well. So I ended up with a couple of these large sticker embellishments left over, and I'm not real sure which way I want to go with them. You can see here I'm kind of mixing and matching patterns that I could potentially cut down. At the end, I just decide to cut that last sheet into 2 mini slimlines, and I feel like I'm just going to roll with it. Now, what I really like about these 6-inch strips that come on these papers, what I've realized is that you can cut these down and use them as like focal points to go across the mini slimlines. Now, you see here where I've got some overlap on some of the cards or some of those strips. I'm going to just keep those 3 together because I had overlap at the top and at the bottom, and I feel like I can just make it work by keeping it together. You can always go back and cut it apart later. It's not the end of the world. It's harder to try to get something back together once you've cut it. So it's just easier to cut it down if I need to later. So those are my strips I'm going to use again to go across my mini slimline since they're 6 inches, and my mini slimline paper mats go across by 6 inches. So the next thing here is I'm going to match up my card bases to my card fronts. So you can notice here I haven't glued anything down yet. I am still in the process of mass producing these cards. I want to make it as easy as possible. And the way that you assembly line is to do the same step over and over between all of the different cards. And you see here, I changed my mind. I want the teal card with that Just Boss embellishment. So you absolutely can change your mind. There's nothing set in stone. And again, if you prep these cards this way where you've got everything laid out, you can assembly line and really maximize on your time. One of the other good things about this process is you can stop at any point and you can always catch up to the next time you have some free time. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some scraps to these cards, and you see here I'm using my ATG tape runner and my Barely Art glue. You can actually glue at this step, and you really can glue at any step, but for the purpose of this I'm going to show you a couple of them where I glue, and then I'm just going to finish matching them together, and I'm going to go ahead and finish gluing off camera just to kind of save some time for you. So here you can actually decide if you want to add embellishments as well. I am actually just going to match my my scraps in at this step because I feel like that was going to make it a little bit quicker. And you see here where I'm kind of going through a couple different patterns. I'm just mixing and matching, trying to see what I like best. When I find something that I like, then I go ahead and move on to the next one. And if you're not real sure, or if you kind of get stuck on one, there's no worries. Just put it aside and you see what you have left over at the end. And it may be that nothing gets added to the card. And that's perfectly fine as well. Not everything has to be using up those scrap strips. It's okay to just have a plain background. We do have the stickers and the other additional gold hearts that we'll be embellishing with, so there's no problem. And again, you are allowed to change your mind. Do not feel like you are stuck in one specific process or with one specific design. You can absolutely decorate to your heart's content. You see there where I added the strip in the background and I didn't like it. So I ended up pulling it out and I said, you know what? These are just going to go by themselves. So, and then you see here where I'm adding some additional, I'm covering up some of this pretty pattern paper, and that's okay too. So you have just so many options. I cannot stress this enough. Just have fun with it, mix and match. And the goal here for me at least was just to use up all of my paper. And you'll see at the very end, I end up doing that. I used up all of the cut aparts. I used up all of the regular paper. I ended up using all of those big sticker embellishments as well. And I almost used up all of my little punched out gold hearts as well. And you see here where I'm mixing and matching my scraps with those little strips, those border strips. And I had one left over and I figured, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and make a separate mini slimline card out of it. So I cut some more card bases, and you can see here where I'm using actually my cardstock scrap from when I cut down down my 8 mini slimline card base. And then here you see, I'm just going to put two of my scraps and my border strip together to make another card mat. So here is what they look like once I added in the final strips to my A2 size cards. I did do these off camera because I had already shown you this process with the mini slimlines. So I just kind of add in a little bit here. You see just a little bit of extra touch just to give it a little bit more kind of dimension, little pizzazz, I guess. And you'll see through this process that I do change this up a little bit as I go through. I add more cut aparts, I add embellishments, and then eventually I add stickers. So it does change slightly as we go on. So the next step that I'm doing, and you do not have to do this many steps, by the way, is I'm going to go through the process of finishing up my cut aparts, finish mapping them out, and kind of use up those hearts as well, just to map out how I want all of these cards to look. So I do go ahead and show you on a couple of cards here where I'm gluing down, just to kind of give you an idea of how you can actually glue at this step instead of waiting to the next step. But ultimately I do end up gluing everything off camera in just a bit, just to kind of save some time as well. And you can see here that I rearranged these little embellishment hearts multiple times until I found something that I liked. And then I went ahead and, kind of finalized the design that I wanted. But you can move things around. That's the beauty of testing it and playing with it before you go. And you see here what I did was I kind of figured out my mapping layout on one of the cards. And because I have two of each, I don't actually take the time to finish gluing the second one right now. What I'm doing is I just want to get through all of these cards, go through all of my scraps and my cut aparts and my embellishments, just to kind of get everything mapped out. And then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to finish gluing later. So I'm just kind of placing things, seeing how things work. And my goal is at the end of this, I'll have everything mapped out and then I can just glue everything all at once and be done with it. So you see here, super straight, super basic process. And like I said, I did go ahead and glue a few of these for you just to kind of see, to show you what this process could look like if you did go ahead and glue at this point. And the biggest thing here is you're basically just trying to decide where you want everything to lie on your card. You're basically doing the embellishing on these cards. You see here, I'm actually bringing in that huge border strip that I left together. I ended up not cutting this apart, and I thought it worked great with that striped background at the top and at the bottom. Sometimes it just kind of works out this way. And like I said, if you did not like having all of these strips together, you could cut them apart. And I'm trying to play here with the idea of how I can incorporate more of these cut aparts, because my ultimate goal anytime I have a paper pad smash is not to be left with anything. If something just absolutely does not work, I'm okay with adding a few little bits and pieces to my stash. But for the most part, my goal is to get rid of everything. And you see here where I'm anchoring those die cut hearts, or those punched hearts, behind some of the embellishments. I think this one was my favorite card, actually, with the girl boss mug. I think it just kind of, I really like the wording on the background. I like how the embellishments ended up laying out. You'll see the final card here in a bit, but I think that one was my favorite. So just quick and easy process. Again, you can totally do this with any paper pad. Take out a paper pad, take out a pack of embellishments. And if you don't have embellishments, then just cut up the cut aparts and use the cut aparts as your focal points. I got lucky in that I did find some additional embellishment pieces to this paper pad. It wasn't just paper. I was able to find the big cardstock stickers as well as the little sticker book. And I will also be putting the stickers off camera as part of that gluing process. So what I'll do is I'll glue everything, and after I glue everything, then I come back for one final pass and I add all of my stickers. So again, you can call this process any which way you want. I call this assembly line cards. I like to just prep everything and do the same step over and over and over, even if I'm getting different outcomes. That's just kind of the process that I like. It's one of the processes that I like, especially if you're going to be making a ton of cards. I find that that's so much easier than doing one card at a time. And so if you're somebody who has always only ever done one card at a time, I challenge you, I invite you to try this type of method where you're able to make all of your cards all at once. And at the end of it, a lot of times you may find that you end up spending around the same amount of time to make 30 cards than you did just to make, say 5 cards. Plus, you don't have to put as much stash back into your stash. So you won't have to put much paper scraps or whatever back into your stash. So it just really saves on just everything. I really enjoy this process. And I make so many cards that I don't know what I would do if I did not have this process. I could not do this one at a time. You see here, I had 2 little scraps left over of the cut aparts. And once I go in and I do finish finalizing these cards, I will end up sneaking these 4 little cut aparts, or these 2 sets of cut aparts, back into the cards as well. So here I'm just showing you the basic glue down process. I'm just mapping out. I'm using my wet glue and the ATG tape runner just to kind of finish gluing everything, just to kind of give you a couple of examples of kind of what it looks like whenever you are gluing down these cards. And typically what I do is I try to glue things down to my mat, especially if there can be overhang, and then I trim off the overhang and then I go ahead and put them on the card base. Now, if I'm going to be layering on or gluing with wet glue, then I try to do it straight to the actual card base itself. So again, I'm going to finish the rest of these off camera. I just wanted to show you a sneak peek of kind of what that process looked like. So I have finished all of my cards. I'm going to do just a recap here in a second to show you the final cards. I did end up using several of the stickers in this sticker sheet, the sticker book. You can see here there's a ton of white on these sticker sheets because I did use a lot of the stickers. I still had a ton left I can use for a different project, or I can use them on the insides of the cards you saw there where you got 2 of each, which was perfect because I had 2 of each card. I did have 3 embellishments left over, just these 3 hearts, 1 of each size, and that's really why I had them left over, because I didn't have a coordinating one to go on the second card, and I had no cut aparts left over. So here are the finished cards. I ended up with 20 mini Slimlines, 10 A2 size cards for a total of 30 cards. So you can see here where I included some additional stickers. I will have close-ups on my Instagram. That's Party Planner Papery on Instagram. So in case you do want to kind of look at the close-ups. See, I think that one was my favorite. I just like how it all kind of went together. And like I said, you can check it out. You can see all the close-ups. And then I definitely invite you or challenge you to take out a paper pad. Try this process. Now you've seen how I kind of cut down my paper. And again, this same method that I use to cut down my paper can be used on anything. Determine what your focal point is going to be, whether that's a stamped image, whether that is a stamped sentiment, whether that is an actual embellishment, ephemera. Determine what that is, and then use that as your main guide to determine whether you're going to be making mini Slimlines or A2 size cards. And from there, then determine your orientation, cut the paper down, and then embellish to your heart's content. So those were my 30 cards. I did smash this entire 6x6 paper pad. It's She Inspired Us by Michaels, and I smashed the entire pad making these cards. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for visiting. Hope you subscribe, like this video, and follow me on Instagram. And as always, happy crafting, everyone.